Welcome to the Undefined Leader, where we reimagine leadership, redefine work, and get curious. You might have noticed we haven't been recording episodes a lot recently. Derek and I were recording a lot of episodes every single week, and we lost momentum. And it was so hard for us to get back into it and have our motivated momentum again and motivation to even do it. So here we are, Derek, we're back into it. And today we're curious about momentum.
Yeah, we are back. It has been a little break, so sorry to everyone. Alex, I'm curious, why did we lose momentum? Like, what happened?
Yeah. I can list so many things. Like, you've been traveling every single week for 5 days in a row. I've had time off, this and that. Life happens, but I feel like they're all excuses. Like, it's all excuses. We could have absolutely found 20 minutes, no matter what's going on in life, to record a podcast, and we didn't. And so I feel like we just lost our motivation, our groove a little bit. And then it's so much harder to get back into the groove of things again that then you just make excuses for everything else. Why do you think?
You're right. There's a whole lot of excuses, but yet, and I think it's like the reverse momentum. Like momentum isn't, in my opinion, like when we're talking about momentum, it's not like a positive or a negative. It's just which direction are things moving. So it's like we built. It's not like we lacked momentum, we had the wrong momentum. We had the momentum where it's like, "Oh, it's easy to put it off another day," or it's easy well, once you do it, it's easy. So I think we had momentum. It's just we had momentum going one way where it felt easy to record and make the time. And then when we started to, "Oh, wait, I'm traveling. Oh, I'm busy. Can we just put it off? Oh, wait, not today." Then we built momentum going the other direction on things. So
Hmm.
now we're fighting a different type of momentum.
True. True. Have you ever had the moment where maybe you had like a really, really small task? It could be like you were gonna write someone a letter or you're gonna clean out a closet. Like such a small task and you were gonna do it today. And then something happens, you don't do it, and you say, "Oh, I'll just do it tomorrow. I'll just do it tomorrow." And then suddenly you're like 2 weeks in and it's taking up so much of your mental space and it's like the last thing you ever want to do now. Have you ever had that moment
Yeah,
before?
for sure, for sure. That sounds like
Yeah.
doing my monthly, travel expenses, speaking of travel.
Yeah. Sometimes we just like build up a scenario in our minds and it's just it becomes the small task becomes this bigger and bigger thing. And the longer you don't just get it done with, it becomes harder and harder. And so I think that's like what you're talking about too, is the other side of the momentum that's pushing in now.
Yeah, because 'cause we're getting into, like, physics a little bit here of, an object in motion tends to stay in motion, an object at rest tends to stay at rest, but there could be, like, backwards rolling is also motion and also momentum there, and yeah, and in that scenario you're talking about, typically, if you can, maybe even just do, well, I'll just get started. I'll kinda so one of the worst things that I do from this standpoint, from, like, a work standpoint, is my previous month's travel expenses, right? Of getting all the receipts turned in and everything like that. And as you mentioned, I travel a lot for work. So this is always like a big task. So sometimes it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to organize and collect my receipts. Like, and I don't make it bigger than that. I don't have to like input them yet or, do anything yet. But a lot of times the act of just starting to do that, of let me just organize all my receipts, I end up finishing the whole task because
Mhm.
again that momentum like we're talking about getting in motion just a little bit it kind of like tricks myself into, well, I'm already doing this, I'm already in motion, I might as well just knock it out and be
Get
done
it
with it.
done with. Yeah. The other thing that also helps me is writing it down. So instead of having it just in my brain of thinking of I have all these receipts, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, it's just the act of writing almost like a little to-do list and then taking this task, and it could be a really small task, but then breaking it up into really smaller, easy chunks and then just writing those out. Now I'm almost taking the power away from the energy I'm collecting from within myself and overthinking and just writing a to-do list, that alone, like, usually is like, "Okay, it's not as bad as I thought. It's only 3 steps." And then to your point then, it's, "Okay, let me just get done with the first step." And then once that momentum starts, you're in the groove and you start finishing the task too.
You kind of speaking of this idea, do you find that the things that maybe you procrastinate, because basically we're talking about procrastination, and we can maybe say we procrastinated recording an episode, whatever we want to call it, right? Obviously, we just didn't do it. But do you find that there's a connection to the things that maybe you procrastinate the most or lack momentum on are the things that you have less autonomy within?
Maybe. Tell me more.
Even, like for me, like if we're going to stick on the subject of like the travel expenses, I'm being told I have to do it, right? There's like a lack of autonomy within it. Or it's like, the classic, like mom is saying, you got to clean your room. And so, there's this kind of like this piece of it of almost what you were describing is this is something that I have to do. Someone's making me do it. But what you found is a way to like create autonomy within that of, well, I'll create a list and I'll determine how I do it. It's something that maybe like I don't get to decide what it is. I'm being told I have to do it, but I'm going to decide how to do it. And that's what's giving me my momentum or my motivation now is the autonomy piece of it.
Maybe. That is such a Derek perspective for you to give. Because you are very much like, don't tell me what to do. I'll do it if I think it's important, kind of thing.
Well,
Versus, I
that's the
think for
thing here.
me, it's
Yeah. If you
not
think to
as
do it,
much
it's
of
going to
the
happen.
autonomy. I get mad at myself of like, don't tell me what to do. I do that to myself where if we're saying, hey, we're gonna record a podcast on Monday, completely arbitrary date that we've picked, you and I chose that day. We have autonomy around it. And then sometimes I'll be mad at myself of, don't tell me what to do. I don't need to do this today and kind of rebel against against it too. So I think there is a little bit of like procrastination, rebellion, autonomy of some kind. But this happens in so many parts of our life. It could be small tasks like we've been talking about, could be a fitness journey, it could be at work as a team. It doesn't even have to be by yourself, but I know I felt moments where as a team, I felt like we're making progress. I felt like we're all dialed in and getting stuff done. And then sometimes like something happens and the team just loses progress and momentum. And it's so challenging to bring that team back into it. Derek, have you had that experience as like leading a team and your thoughts on one, is it your responsibility as a leader to get your team motivated and back on track? Yeah.
It's, it's such a good question. And this is such a good topic too, now to kind of take it into the leadership role and, really like what is the purpose of a leader and what is leading? Is leading motivating, or is leading setting the direction and let everyone figure, how to get there? There's and so many different opinions. There's not a right answer. And this perspective is fresh in my mind too, because with the mention, I've been doing a lot of travel lately and I've been all over the US and Canada in rooms full of leaders and business owners. And this is one of the common complaints or whatever we want to call it that they're saying is, hey, I want to do all these things. I can't find people that will do it. I can't find people that will help me do it. And then even if like they're really like opening it up, they're saying, it's basically like kids these days, everyone's lazy, no one wants to work. And that's a whole side topic. But what we're really talking about here is their inability to motivate or their ability to find project or direction that's motivating to people. So I know this is a real issue. And when you look at like workplace surveys, you consistently see like 70 to 80% of people describe themselves as disengaged. And so there might be a little bit of a motivation crisis or a momentum crisis. And so, yeah, to answer your original question, do I experience it as a leader? For sure. Especially when like everything seems good. And then there's like an obstacle, right? Where maybe hey, we were working, we were excited, and now maybe there's a piece of it that we have to wait on that's a little bit out of our control, and then now the momentum stops, right? Or all of a sudden we didn't think all the way through, and there's an unplanned component of it, and then people start working on other things, or they start thinking about other things, and then you just feel like, hey, we're trying to get back to this, and it's never the same as that same moment when we were working on.
So you're saying like what could cause a team to lose momentum are obstacles and distractions.
Yeah.
So you're distracted by something, some other task was put on your plate, or there's an obstacle on a project you have to pause and go and do. I agree with that. I think some other reasons that would cause a team to lose momentum is mundane tasks. If every single day is the same mundane task, if the team doesn't really see a why behind those tasks, if they don't understand that the bigger picture of why that task is important, if they don't have a passion or desire to do it, that I think could be lacking of excitement. It could be part of it. And I think that's part of like the not being engaged too. If you lack excitement and lack a why behind your tasks, then you're just coming in, filling out some paperwork or something and leaving. And you don't see how that's affecting a bigger picture. I think another thing is burnout. I know that's been my biggest reason why I've lost momentum and motivation is being in a high stress job for a really long time without managing that. And then what you realize is like it just goes stress, 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 and then suddenly just like a burnout. And it's really hard to get back into being momentum, like motivated uh, at that point.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and if we dip a little into, like the academic side of everything that you're talking about, or the research side of everything, just even just what you were saying, even too, is kind of describing, when there are these mundane things, or these obstacles or these hurdles. Again, I think there's a relationship there to autonomy and the ability to make your own decisions, the ability to make your own priorities, the ability, to say, hey, you know what? I'm really into this. I'm not going to maybe do some of those. I'm going to switch priorities a little bit, to keep working on it and all that. So I think that's a factor where the less control you have over your day or how you do your work or how you work, I think might, contribute to this feeling of burnout as well, of like, I'm really excited about this. But I'm being opposed at different steps along the way. And, or, there's things that are making this harder. And now I feel a lack of progress and I don't feel like I have control or autonomy necessarily on all the tools or resources to get around that. In the workplace, it could be everything from budget, to in some businesses, seasonality, labor, short. There's just so many things that you might feel you don't have control, autonomy, and I just think that weighs heavily on this ability to create momentum or feel momentum, and then to feel motivated. Because it's sort of like, well, this. I think where we start to get into the language of it is what it is, which is like one of the most unmotivating phrases possible, right? Because you're basically saying I have zero control over this, so why bother?
I said that to you yesterday. We were in a meeting and I was like, all right, well, it is what it is. It's a waste of time to even keep talking about it. So, all right, let's just move on. And
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. It's extremely unmotivating and it doesn't make me excited and motivated to work on a project because I feel like I'm not heard, understood. I don't have a say in it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, all right, at this point, it's just an administrative task
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that I don't even believe in.
Yeah. And I've heard it actually now a few times recently, talking about like what is the single biggest source of motivation, or what is the single biggest source of momentum, around this idea of progress. That
Mhm.
if you can somehow see progress or measure progress, even if it just seems slight, like that is like the biggest fuel for this feeling of momentum, right? And like I said, momentum kind of implies movement. That's why I think there is a difference between motivation and momentum. Like, and then there's like a chicken and egg conversation too here of which comes first. Do you need to get motivated to create momentum, or does your momentum create the motivation?
And do you have a thought on that question?
I do, but I asked the question to you first.
Yeah. I think I believe in the second one. It's you need to, you can't wait for motivation. You can't wait just to one day wake up feeling motivated to go and make momentum. I think you need to have momentum and the feeling of progress. Like if you had a to-do list and you checked it off, there's something there that's just like a, ooh, nice. I checked off something. Like it feels good. There's that like what would it be called? Like a dopamine hit or whatever. You get that dopamine hit and you're like, okay, I like this feeling. I'm gonna make more progress. And so from that, motivation starts coming. And then I would also add there's a different, it's not just motivation or momentum, there's also a discipline
Mm,
part in there too.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
what's your thought?
no, no, I agree with you. Everything you said. Like, it's just my experience too, that if you wait for motivation, like we saw with our gap in recording podcast, like if you just wait that I'm going to wake up today and, hey, today's the day, I feel like you're probably going to keep waiting. But if you do something, like if you just do it, if you just record the episode, all of a sudden we're like, hey, let's record another. Hey, let's. So it's now we're motivated. Yeah, I agree. It's the action that creates typically the motivation, because the single biggest source or fuel for motivation is progress. So, hey, we make progress. Let's do some more. Cause you're right. It is like a dopamine hit. Progress feels good. And then that it's like this cycle now. And then ultimately you're right. I think the goal is if you do something enough, you get enough momentum, you spark enough motivation, you do it enough consistently, it becomes a habit. And so, I'm sure we both have some things that, other people would look at us and be like, how do you get yourself to do that? It's just, we've created a habit on it.
Mhm.
And so now it doesn't matter how we feel or what we're thinking. And motivation is like not a part of the calculation at all. It's just a habit. We just do it. But that you got to earn that. That takes like a lot of reps and a lot of reps and doing things to get to that point. So Alex, like kind of an original question here, getting back to one of our original questions then, because we kind of brought it up and then talked about a lot of other things. So to bring it back, and I'm curious to ask you this question: is it the leader's job or responsibility to create motivation, or maybe in this context, maybe is it the leader's job to create momentum so that everyone gets motivated by the momentum?
I believe it's the leader's responsibility to help your team members and people around you be the best versions of themselves. And part of that is motivating momentum. Like I don't believe in if you walk into an office and you just see your team unmotivated, lacking momentum, I do think as a leader, it's your responsibility to find out why is that happening? What is the root cause of this lack of motivation? And what is the changes I can make to the environment so that the team, they're able to show up tomorrow as their best self?
Yeah. So I like that why, because an answer to that why could very well be you as the leader. So that would take like some self-awareness, because we've done episodes
Hmm.
on leadership styles. Some leadership styles lend themselves more to being inspiring and motivational. We talked about like transformational, and then some leadership styles can, like the micromanaging and things like that. And then also too, this gets us a little bit even into the door of extrinsic motivation versus intrinsic motivation, because then there is no possible way as the leader to motivate you through intrinsic. That means it comes from within in yourself. So then if I'm limited in my leadership skills and limited in my leadership ability, then I'm left with trying to extrinsically motivate, which is that transactional style where I can either dangle enough carrots in front of you or scare you with enough fear that you find some motivation to do it. So I like
Yeah, but I also disagree though. Like intrinsically motivated, I completely think that as a leader, you can still intrinsically motivate someone. So it could be as simple as like helping them with a to-do list and helping them make that first momentum so they feel that progress and they feel good and they keep wanting to do more. And so just being a support system just for that one thing, I think that intrinsically motivates. Or or it could be maybe you've been working on a lot of tasks and it seems very administrative to you and you just are so disconnected from the why behind it. Maybe it's just you and I going out to lunch and I can show you the how the tasks that you did impacted a person or a company or a department or like, and so showing you the impact that you're making at the same time, I think that's still intrinsically motivating. Like touches parts of a person's intrinsically motivated self,
Yeah, well, so
if
you're
that makes sense.
creating, I think what you're describing is as a leader, creating the right conditions
Mhm.
for someone to become intrinsically motivated. That's a skill set, and that's, I think, something that a lot of leaders are not capable. They're capable, they just in that moment, they don't know how. They would be capable if they learned how, and, if they studied on how to be a better leader and study these things. But I think for a lot of leaders, their current skill set that they have, they don't even think what you just said, they don't even consider that. They go back to people are lazy. You gotta extrinsically motivate them by either rewards or fear, or, or punishments. And now we're back into a transactional thing. And then if we combine that with most people are burnt out, most people are unmotivated, we just have like this horrible cycle of poor leadership creates poorly motivated workforces.
Yeah. And this is the whole thing about our podcast, right? We're reimagining leadership. So our audience, if you're listening right now and you found yourself in the next, few days saying, why won't people just do this? Why are they just like not making momentum on this project? Maybe that's your time to stop, pause, and reflect on like all the things that we just started talking about of what leadership skill do I need to use right now to support my team to get back into momentum on things. Um, can I share with you a quote that I always think about when it comes to motivation, progress? It's that progress is not linear. And I saw an image of basically this quote where it's a person that's hiking and going to the top and trying to achieve the very top of the mountain. And the mountain is not just, you just go uphill the entire time. It's progress is not linear. It's sometimes you have to climb down and then to climb up. And sometimes you climb a little bit down and then sometimes you have to go all the way down to the valley to go back up. And so when you're in those little pits in those valleys, it feels like you may not be making progress. It might feel like you are unmotivated and you're never going to get to the top of the mountain. But just knowing that, in my opinion, and now I'm curious if you even agree with this or not, that progress is not linear and there are ups and downs. But then knowing when you're in that down and knowing how to get yourself and your team back up, that is the how you continue to make momentum. You don't just sit in the valley, you keep hiking at the same time. What are
Yeah,
your
no, I
thoughts on that?
completely agree. Because part of that too is just, it's a little cliche, but like 1% progress is still progress. Like it doesn't have to be like these huge jumps forwards. Maybe you have a day where um you feel like, man, 40, 50, 60, 70, I was 100% in today. And then on the next day, if you're only 1 or 2%, that's still progress. So if you look at like the daily chart of progress, you're still further along than when you started. And
Mm-hmm.
just it doesn't have to be this 100% all the time type of feeling too. So I think that's kind of another way of looking at the non-linear, and knowing too then that there might be some days where it's like -4%. So then whatever happens the next day is really important, or
Mm-hmm.
the day after that. And I especially too, like if we're trying to build a habit or we're trying to do this concept of discipline or something, like where does discipline replace it? I've always told people, especially like, I've owned a gym before, right? And I've ran that. Like, why is the gym packed the first week of January? And why is the gym empty the first week of March? Not too long later. So all of a sudden, there's like this feeling, and then the feeling can you can sustain that feeling, but it's what happens on the very first moment or the very first day that you wake up and you don't feel like it. Like that is like the most deciding moment of this whole equation, is what happens in that moment. But it doesn't have to be maybe whatever your 100% is that you've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe, well, instead of going to the gym today, I'm just going to go for a walk. It's still progress. And that's not that linear progress that you're talking about, but the retreat is, oh, I'll take today off, or I just won't do anything. And then now you've got
Mm-hmm.
momentum going the other direction because you haven't yet built a habit. You're not safe yet. You haven't built a habit yet.
That's such a good example of context around it. Why is it that everyone on January 1st creates these goals and they're excited? Because there's some kind of like our context is there's some kind of new beginning, right? There's a new beginning of the year. And so the situation itself creates us to reflect on our past, reflect and set some goals and get excited for it. So as a leader, you can do that regularly. Like every single quarter, meet with your team of create that environment and context of, all right, what are our goals? What are your personal goals? Have you made progress towards your goals so far? What do you want to accomplish in this next quarter? How can I support you through it? And then even like to what you just said, I love that of, okay, so what are some things that you're going to need to do in order to hit this goal? And then what are you going to do when this obstacle comes your way? When you wake up one day and you don't feel like doing it. And so being able to talk about the roadblocks before they even happen and then you have a game plan for it, I think that's such a leadership skill as well and helps create that motivation and helping your team be the best versions of themselves too.
I think that's good. And so, Alex, here's maybe my final question for you as we wrap this up. Do you feel momentum now for recording more episodes?
Yes, I am proud of us for just getting one done out of the way. I am excited to do the second one. I forgot how much fun it is to actually record. And so I'm excited. I feel momentum. How about you?
We took action, we created momentum. Now we get to benefit from the motivation that's going to come from taking action and doing this, getting it done.
All right, guys, we will definitely see you next week because we are going to continue recording episodes. Until then, stay curious.